What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's happening with earnings coming out for the week, what's going on with the economic calendar, what you should be watching for as time progresses on the charts moving forward. But before I break down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moon, deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, in just about 9 days from now. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening with the markets. Looking at Tesla, a very, very nice looking cup and handle like structure, and we're forming a lot of wicks over here below. So we have this wick here, we have one right here, another wick right here within this range, which does tend to signal an accumulation is forming. This tends to favor an upside direction in the share price, at least moving forward for the next week or two. So this does favor upside for Tesla, and technicals do look a little bit more bullish. But in order for this to continue, we have to watch for some key levels, which I'll break down a little bit later into this video. So I first want to talk about some very important things coming out, at least for the week. We have some important earnings coming out for this week. The first thing I just want to note is that for Monday, we have Lee Auto, not to mention Wix and Zoom. For Tuesday, we have a lot of retail like Macy's, Lowe's, AutoZone, and a couple more. And then for Wednesday, going into Wednesday, we have the most important day for earnings of the week and one of the most important days of the week itself, because we have Target, TJ Maxx in the morning, then Nvidia announcing its earnings after the market closes. Whatever they announce is going to have a big effect on the semiconductor industry. And it's going to have a big effect on Tesla as well, because Tesla does depend on Nvidia for chips and such. So that's going to be a big supplier for Tesla. And it's very important for us to consider this, because whatever Nvidia does will affect Tesla, especially on Wednesday and Thursday. And then for Thursday, we just have Ross and a few others, some very minor earnings, but Nvidia is going to be the highlight of the week for earnings. Now, for tomorrow specifically, it's going to be Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 8:45 a.m., 9 o'clock a.m., and 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Bostic, Barr, Waller, and Jefferson all giving speeches. We have a ton of Fed speakers, and what they say could shake the markets. So make sure you're prepared and ready for this moving forward. At 11:30 a.m., we have the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions coming out, and Boston giving a speech. And we'll see what happens with all of this. Whatever these Fed speakers say could affect the markets to some large extent. So that's going to be very, very tricky. Could even be a little bit ambiguous for the markets. So I'll be talking about all of this very, very soon. And on top of all of this, I just wanted to say that we have more things coming out. The fear and greed index is currently at greed, and we're going to be watching to see what happens with this momentum shift over here. Right now, market momentum is quite greedy, and we also have some shifts over here when it comes to puts and call options positioning. We're seeing a little bit of a shift here to the downwards direction, because right now, I want to make it very clear that we're starting to see some puts being closed, more calls being bought, and the market's sentiment is still on greed. Market volatility is also, in my personal opinion, a little bit more in favor of a neutral direction. I would say more towards greed, because the VIX is hitting new lows. It's the lowest we've seen the VIX in years. Okay, the VIX is dropping to some crazy low levels, and there's no sign of the VIX bouncing yet or doing anything like that. It's still looking a little bit more bearish to me. So moving forward for Tesla, we have some good news. The Tesla Cybertruck is getting more deliveries in the first 4 months than the Hummer EV sold last year. And that's actually very, very important. So the reason why I'm saying this is because I personally don't really like to compare a lot of companies to like extents like these, but I just want to say this because the Cybertruck was getting so much criticism for not being a big hit, for this and that. I know it's not profitable for Tesla. I know it's very tricky for them to really develop this and kind of upscale this. But I do want to note that the sales are there, the demand is there, and they're actually getting more sales than many other Hummer EVs, at least from like GM and other companies like that. So I'm just here to say that, look, GM is a great company. I expect great growth from them for the long-term future. Same thing with Tesla. Tesla's comparable. Tesla's doing a great job as well. And both of these companies deserve recognition, especially the Cybertruck. It has developed, a lot of recognition as well. And I can't wait to see what else the future holds. What's good about this is the demand is there for the Cybertruck. People are going to continue to buy this. Now, some people may hate it. Some people may think it's just absolutely, horrendous looking. It's up to them. But in my personal opinion, I think it looks pretty awesome, and I can't wait to see what else is going to happen moving forward. For other pieces of news, I just want to say right now, Tesla's executives are talking about the Model 3 performance design. That's actually something very, very awesome, as there's been more talk about it using different structures, if anything, and different choices for the Model 3 performance. I think it's very, very cool, and I can't wait to see what else happens with this. They have very, very cool looking features, lots of nice specs, and it does also qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. So it's pretty cool about Tesla. And then more news about the share price. We have some bullish ratings, at least for Tesla to outperform the market moving forward. The price price ratio is holding up decently. It's actually improving compared to before because Tesla is building some strength right now. In terms of seasonality, we're green about 53% of the time historically on Mondays. We also tend to see more volatility at 10 o'clock a.m. So for the first 30 minutes to 1 hour, there's more volatility, more green, if anything, historically at that time. Also at noon and then at around 2 p.m., we tend to see more and more volatility. Remember, guys, June historically is a very strong month for Tesla, so I can't wait to see what happens as we approach that. And we're getting very, very close to it as the weeks progress. All right, so with that being said, that's it for most of the data involving Tesla. Volume is also about 77 million. Not too bad, not horrendous, but we'll see what happens with this. And I just want to say that right now the share price is showing some very, very good signs. So that being said, I want to make it very clear that right now, for the way Tesla is moving, we have a nice cup and handle like structure, and we have a lot of wicks forming on the bottom. If we break past this resistance at 178 to 180, we're going to be looking for a push for 182. If that breaks, look for 185. If we end up losing support right over here around this 174 area, I'm going to be looking for another move all the way down to 172. And those are going to be our support levels. So if we lose 172, I will favor bears a little bit more for a push down to 168. And if we break past 180 and hold it, I think we're going to be pushing up to 185. So that's my view. Hold 180 and close above it. We're more bullish. Lose 172 and we turn more bearish. That's going to be my most important analysis about this. What do I think the share price is doing? Well, like I said earlier, we have a lot of kind of like wicks forming over here. You guys can see how buyers are stepping in. They're really defending Tesla. They started accumulating shares like right here. We had this little dip before it got this nice bounce. And then right here, they started to reaccumulate shares as well. So we have like another like inverse head and shoulder structure here. Also, there's one like right here developing. So I would say this looks like a cup and handle, and I favor upside a bit more for Tesla. Could we dip a bit and retest and grab liquidity again in this 175 zone? Sure, we could. We could dip a little bit, but I'm going to be looking for a push for at least 182. And then if that breaks, look for 185. I favor upside a bit more on Tesla, maybe a little dip and then a push. And then whether or not this continues could depend on the overall market, but the share price is looking a bit more bullish so long as we get good news. As long as there's no bad news, I do favor upside a bit more on Tesla, and I find that to be a little bit more probable. For SPY, how are things looking? Well, it's very simple, guys. I do have an analysis for SPY I want to show you. There are two possibilities for tomorrow. It depends on the Fed speakers. Now, I can't really predict what Jerome Powell says all the time. I can't predict what the reaction will always be, but I can tell you this much. Oh, okay. When we look at SPY, okay, you'll notice that we have this wick that formed right here. We have a very, very nice wick that formed here, and the 4 hours starting to turn right here as volume kind of came up from here. So we called in my video from a couple of days ago that the market would likely form a temporary top at 531.5, get a little dip. We did get a 4-point dip. We actually did dip a little bit. SPY did dip a bit since that happened, but even though we called the dip, the buyers came back and they started defending and they grabbed liquidity. This makes me think that we're going to get a push to the upwards direction tomorrow. So I do expect some upside tomorrow, but I don't know the full extent of it. That's going to depend a lot on the Fed. Okay, so we have a bunch of Fed speakers. They're going to affect how this ends up moving. Let's go over two possibilities. I'm going to redraw this just to make this very simple to understand. SPY is going to likely push tomorrow. That's what I do expect to happen. I think we're going to be pushing up a little bit higher. Wait, sorry guys, let me pull this up. I'm not sure what happened right here. But what's very interesting is SPY is going to push up like this going into tomorrow. Okay, we're going to be watching to see, do we break this high right here? We have a high right here, the all-time high. If we break the all-time high, we're going to be pushing all the way up towards these higher levels, and then we could continue to break to new all-time highs. If we break this high, we could be going to about 532, if not 535, if the Fed pumps the market tomorrow. But what if this is a trap and we push up? Well, if we fill this imbalance into the 530s, which I think we're going to go to tomorrow, the problem is there's no guarantee we break the all-time high because we got this big red bar here, and there could be a shift for a little cool off depending on what the Fed says. So if we get the push and we fail to break the all-time high, then we're going to be likely making a move all the way back down to 528 or so for a temporary little dip. So when we see something like that, let me just not space this out too much. And you guys can see that we might get a little dip if we fail to break the all-time high. So that's going to be a very, very key level, at least for tomorrow. I'll be watching this carefully. So just to be clear, look for a push tomorrow. Both of these lines are showing a push coming tomorrow. If we fail to break the all-time high, look for a potential rejection and a move back down. Just temporarily, right? Just temporarily. We could always bounce again later on. But if we break the all-time high, if we break this high at 531.5, then we're easily going to be continuing to push to 532, followed by 535. So yes, SPY has more upside potential, but depends on what the test is. Do we reject off this area, or do we get a big bounce and a break through it? That will depend a lot on what the reaction is after these Fed speakers speak. I personally can't predict what they're going to say. That's why I'm trying to be very open-minded right now. But expect a push tomorrow morning, then we'll see what the big reaction is from there. As far as Nvidia goes, Nvidia could also help carry the markets higher because Nvidia has earnings this week, and there's a lot of hype. A lot of buyers like to step in approaching the earnings period. So let me make it very clear that Nvidia is on a very, very nice uptrend. Right, excuse me. Right now, we're kind of dipping a bit right here. We might actually test this trend line tip a little bit more towards this 908 area. And then we'll see if we get a bounce. It might do something like this approaching its earnings, get a big bounce like this. And then whether or not this continues to push depends a lot on its earnings. So I anticipate there's going to be a little dip coming to Nvidia. It might kind of grab liquidity again at this 920 area. Then look for a bounce up to about 937 to 944. And then we'll see what the reaction is. Are we going to get a push or not? That's going to be key for the way we end up moving. In terms of other things, I wanted to say that for the QQQ, the triple Q, okay, this in turn is very similar to SPY. Now, we have a very, very nice looking liquidity grab right here, but this is actually looking a little bit more bearish than SPY looking at the current trend so far. So the QQQ is showing a little bit of weakness right now, at least technically speaking, because of how we're downtrending and how low of a lower high we made. So I think that tomorrow we're going to get a little pop. We might grab liquidity at 453, but I don't know if the Fed is going to cause a rejection all the way back down to 450 or if we get this big break. If we break the all-time high, we're going up to at least 455.5 quite easily. If we fail to break the all-time high, we come kind of short of that, and we just hit the 453s and fail, then we could get a big rejection. The best thing I'll tell you is just look for a push tomorrow morning and watch and see do we get a rejection or not. I know you guys wish I gave you guys with like one main prediction, but like I said before, it depends on what the Fed says. So I can't really predict exactly everything they're going to say. So as a day trader and as someone who wants to be very unbiased to give you guys the best analysis possible, I'll tell you this: I'm going to be very unbiased and tell you guys what to be watching for. So watch for this. Be prepared for anything. Expect a push tomorrow morning. We're going to likely push up higher and watch to see if we get a rejection or not. That's going to be key for the way we end up moving. For Apple, in my opinion, is trading kind of sideways right now. Now, we're kind of consolidating, but we haven't really picked a direction. We have this imbalance below that could fill, bring us down to 187 if we lose 189. And if we're bullish and we break 190.5, we're going to be pushing for 192 plus. What are we doing? We're just sideways right now. Back and forth for 3 straight days. And we'll see if we break out towards the 192s or if we get a big rejection towards the 187s. We're just stuck right now, so give this some time and we'll see what happens moving forward. With that being said, guys, that is it for my analysis on the main 5, Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, and the others. And now I'm just going to focus on the other tickers. Let's actually talk about Bitcoin before I break down more tickers real quick. Bitcoin to me is showing a little bit of weakness on the 4-hour time frame. I could see a little dip right here towards this imbalance at 65.58, and watch to see if we get a bounce off that or not. So look for a little dip and then a bounce for the potential move, at least for us moving forward. For a couple of other tickers, now let's transition to like Palantir. Palantir has a bullish wedge forming. The technicals do look a little bit more bullish on it, but whether or not this continues could depend on other factors. Watch 22.15. If we break this, we're going to be looking for a push for this imbalance towards 23. If we lose 21.6, we're going to be dipping down to 21. I favor that this is going to kind of push towards the 200 EMA and go a little bit higher. I find that to be a little bit more probable. For Supermicro, now this could continue to dip a little bit more, but the issue is I wouldn't turn too bearish or too bullish for this week. We have to wait for Nvidia's earnings. Nvidia is going to have a big effect on Supermicro, on AMD and the others. That's why you want to be very, very open-minded with this one. So if we lose, all right, if we lose 877, I think we might touch this, but we'll see if we bounce off this or not. If we lose this, look for 850. If we bounce off this, we're going to be pushing all the way up towards 920. We are dipping a little bit, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not, but I'll be very, very patient and open-minded nonetheless about how things end up moving. We are dipping a little bit, though. I want to call this out. There is a risk that we fall a bit more, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not from here moving forward. For Rivian has resistance at this 10.7 area. We also have support at 10.2. We're kind of trading sideways within this range, and overall, we're just going back and forth and back and forth. Now, I do see potential for this to go a little bit higher towards this 10.73 area, and we'll have to see what the move ends up being, at least from here moving forward. So I'll be very patient, open-minded, and give this some time. I do see us pushing to 10.7, but then watch to see if we get a rejection or not. SoFi is also very sideways, just like Rivian, very similar setup. We have 7.38 as resistance at our 200 EMA. We have support at 7.19. I think tomorrow is going to push for 7.38, but then watch to see if you reject or not. It already kind of like rejected like 2 times off the 200 EMA. So it might push a little bit higher, and we'll see what the reaction is from this moving forward. Look for a little push on SoFi and watch for sideways price action. The IWM Russell 2000 is on an uptrend. But this also depends on the 20 EMA. See the green line? This green line is what's trying to hold up. If we hold the green line, we're going to be pushing up for basically 211.5. If we lose the green line, this 200, the 20 EMA, excuse me, we're dipping down to 205. I'll be watching that. It looks to me like it's going to try to push higher for 211, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see if it holds this green trend line. For AMD, this is going to be very dependent on Nvidia's earnings. I could see this actually dip a little bit to retest previous resistance becoming support at our 162 area. If we lose that, look for 159. If we bounce off that, we're going to be looking at 170. I think it might dip towards 160. Was this 162 and then try to bounce off that again? So look for a little dip and then a bounce, and we'll see what happens with that moving forward. For ARM, if we lose the 110 area, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 105. This imbalance down here. If we hold 110, we're going to be looking for a bounce towards 112. To me, it looks a little bit more bearish. I think it might dip down towards 105 before we get some kind of reaction. So watch for that moving forward. For Coinbase, we're on a bit of a dip. We are kind of like downtrending a little bit. We have our 50 EMA at this 211 area as the resistance to be watching for. If this breaks, look for 217. If we lose this, we're going to be looking for support all the way down towards 198. I'll be watching that moving forward. That's going to be very, very pivotal. For Amazon, we have resistance at 185. If we break this, we're going to be looking for a push all the way up towards 188. And if we end up losing support at 183, we're going to be dipping back down. I think what's going to happen is we're going to test 185.5 on Amazon. So look for a little push on Amazon, but we'll see if it rejects or not. If we get the rejection, we could actually see a little dip and we could be dipping down to 183. If we break through this, we're going to be pushing higher. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. For Meta has support currently at 469. I think that's very, very important to see how we end up moving and reacting to it. However, resistance at 472. We're kind of trading sideways right now. It's kind of like what we did on Friday. So to me, it looks like it might retest 469 and maybe try to bounce again, depending if we hold or not. I'm not 100% sure. If we do lose it, then we're going to be dipping more, but watch a test of 469 tomorrow and see if we bounce or not. Microsoft, of all things, is actually more bullish. We're on a very, very nice uptrend. We're holding our 20 EMA just like that of the IWM. So similar setup. If we hold this, look for a push for 425. If we lose this, we're going to be dipping all the way down to 414. So I'll have to watch and see what ends up happening at least from this point on. For Google, we're actually pushing up quite nicely towards this 180 area. We're actually quite bullish. So I favor 180 is coming. So it looks like a little bit more bullish to me, at least moving forward. For GME, it looks a little bit more bearish because we have this gap to fill in the 200 EMA test of 17. So I think it might dip to about 17 then bounce. Remember, guys, ever since GME hit this high, I turned bearish on. I told you guys it's going to likely dip, especially when they make this lower high. I said this because they were doing their halts. There's all this manipulation. I'd also warned everyone that these stocks love to pump and dump. So I'm not saying I'm a bear on GME overall because I want to make it clear that I see that the fundamentals are very strong for the company with their cash accumulation, them not having much debt. I'm bullish, at least in terms of their fundamentals, but when it comes to the way the share price moves, it does love to pump and dump. That is a very, very important reoccurrence. And that's what happened right here. So it could dip a little bit more to 17, then we'll watch for a bounce after that. For AMC, same thing. It's kind of dipping a bit. We could actually test 3.93, then try to bounce. So watch for that. For DJT, looking a little bit more bearish, going to be testing 49.81 to see if we get a bounce or not. But I do see a little dip coming to that. For the VIX, we're looking bearish. It just lost 12.4, the lowest level we've seen, and we're barely holding 11.97. So still looking kind of weak. There's no sign of a bounce on the VIX. You know, historically, we do love to bounce off 12.4. It happened every time this year. But during this move for the markets, it's the first time the VIX ended up losing support. So if we ended up getting a big dip, we ended up losing support. And we're actually looking kind of weak on the VIX. So that's a big anomaly that happened this year. We actually lost 12.4. So that does signal that the market is still holding up. There's no sign of the market rejecting yet. The 10-year is going to be very dependent on what the Fed ends up saying. Do we push a little bit on the 10-year and the market dips, or do we see the opposite? I'll wait and see. It depends on the Fed tomorrow. And the dollar is going to be testing 104.6. If we break this, 105 is coming. If we reject off this, we're going to be dipping. So look for a little push in the dollar and see if we get a rejection or not. We're at support. We held support at 104. We have resistance at 105. We'll have to see which way we break. Anyways, with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. I really appreciate you guys so much for all of the effort that you guys put into the comments and for all your views. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for all the kind words, and I want the best for everyone this weekend. So for Tesla, technicals look a bit more bullish. Always remember Tesla's heavily dictated by the news, so watch your levels just to be safe. But technicals do look more bullish overall, at least for the next weeks or so. So look for a little dip on Tesla and see if we get a little rebound, and watch if buyers continue to defend it. As of right now, buyers are defending Tesla nicely, and there is upside potential. So the technicals do favor an ultimate move to the upside. Look for a dip and then a nice bounce and see what happens with that. All right, enjoy the rest of your guys' evening. Have a great day, guys. I really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you, and have an absolutely incredible rest of the weekend. Don't forget that I'll be back tomorrow morning before the market opens. And until then, I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you for listening, and peace out.